overrule the rightful powers of the president to stop the American people from getting the policies that they voted for in record numbers. It was a grave threat to democracy, frankly, and instead of merely ruling on the immediate cases before them, these judges have attempted to dictate the law for the entire nation. In practice, this meant that if any one of the nearly 700 federal judges disagreed with the policy of a duly elected president of the United States, he or she could block that policy from going into effect or at least delay it for many years, tie it up in the court system. This was a colossal abuse of power which never occurred in American history prior to recent decades, and we've been hit with more nationwide injunctions than were issued in the entire 20th century together. Think of it, more than the entire 20th century, me. I'm grateful to the Supreme Court for stepping in and solving this very, very big and complex problem, and they've made it very simple. I want to thank Justice Barrett, who wrote the opinion brilliantly, as well as Chief Justice Roberts, and Justices Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Thomas. Great people. Thanks for this decision, and thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation. This was, in fact, it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War. It was meant for the babies of slaves, and it's so clean and so obvious. But this lets us go there and finally win that case, because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves. So thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with these numerous policies, and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries, and numerous other priorities of the American people. We have so many of them. I have a whole list. I'm not going to bore you, and I'm going to have Pam get up and say a few words, but there's really, she can talk as long as she wants, because this is a very important decision. This is a decision that covers a tremendous amount of territory. But I want to just thank again the Supreme Court for this ruling. It's a giant. It's a giant. And they should be very proud, and our country should be very proud of the Supreme Court today. And with that, I'd like you to listen to the words of Pam Bondi. She's an incredible Attorney General. We're very proud of her. And as you know, Todd Blanche is with us, and we have so many others that worked on this case and other cases. And I think they're doing a great job. Pam, please say a few words.
Thank you, President Trump. Thank you for fighting for all Americans. Americans are finally getting what they voted for. No longer will we have rogue judges striking down President Trump's policies across the entire nation. No longer. Today, in the 6-3 opinion, Justice Barrett correctly holds that the district court lacks authority to enter nationwide or universal injunctions. These lawless injunctions gave relief to everyone in the world instead of the parties before the court. As the Supreme Court held today, they turned district courts into the imperial judiciary. Active liberal judges have used these injunctions to block virtually all of President Trump's policies. To put this in perspective, there are 94 federal judicial districts. 5 of those districts throughout this country held 35 of the nationwide injunctions. Think about that, 94 districts.
And we're listening to this press conference right now in the White House briefing room. There is Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, talking about this latest round of Supreme Court decisions, and President Trump himself also speaking specifically about the ruling regarding birthright citizenship. Now, the Supreme Court didn't address the merits of the 14th Amendment itself and whether or not the birthright citizenship is constitutional, how it's laid out there. Instead, it addressed the issue of injunctions by lower courts that the president accused of radical judges of seeking to overrule the powers of the president. He called it a great threat to democracy. What President Trump said about birthright citizenship itself, he said that it was meant for babies of slaves, not meant for people who want to come into this country. Trump also went on to say that he can now promptly proceed with other policies that may have been limited by some of those lower court injunctions. Let's go ahead and talk to our team here. ABC senior White House correspondent Selena Wang is at the White House. Selena, I know you've been listening along. Clearly, the White House, President Trump himself, they see this as a green light to move forward on a number of issues, even beyond birthright citizenship.
That's exactly right, Whit. You see President Trump there, as well as the Attorney General, really taking a victory lap here. They're considering this as a major win. They have long argued that these federal judges have far too much power. The president saying that it was stopping the presidency itself. So he sees this as a major win for the American people and now increasing his ability to enact those policies that he believes the American people voted for him to do. So this decision, to your point, this is not about the merits of birthright citizenship, but it limits the ability of these federal judges to stop policy nationwide, known as those injunctions. And that has really been at the heart of the battle between the Trump administration and the judiciary over the last several months. So this could have sweeping implications far beyond just birthright citizenship, but also the president's immigration, deportation policies, also his efforts to slash federal funding. But look, I just spoke to one of the lawyers who actually represents some of those pregnant women in this case, those undocumented pregnant women, and she said that while this looks like a loss on its face, it is not. She believes that ultimately birthright citizenship will be upheld, and she is relieved that at least this is providing protection for the undocumented pregnant women who brought this case forward with.
Selena Wang, thank you. And just a reminder to our viewers over what's just happened in the last couple of hours here. There was that 6-3 decision by the Supreme Court along ideological lines, the liberal justices in dissent saying the 3 district court judges in these cases, these were the cases that were brought forward, and this is a quote here by Justice Amy Coney Barrett, they exceeded their equitable authority by granting injunctions nationwide, but again, not addressing the merits of the birthright order itself. Let's get to ABC's senior Washington reporter, Devin Dwyer, who is at the Supreme Court and covers the court for us. Devin, break this down for us because it is really complicated and there are a lot of questions about how things move forward.
Absolutely, Whit. And the bottom line here is this is not the end of the battle over birthright citizenship, but the Supreme Court today did significantly limit the ability of those individual judges from blocking a president's policy, not just this one, but any policy on a nationwide basis. You know, when you think back to your civics class, you remember that courts are there to adjudicate disputes, right, between 2 different people. You're injured, you come in, you sue your partner. What the court said today is that if you're not injured, if you're not a party to a case, you can't get relief. You can't be protected. And so they significantly narrowed the scope of this ruling and a lot of the other rulings that judges have issued against Donald Trump's policies only to the people that brought those cases. So the individual pregnant women that brought this case challenging the future of their children to get U.S. citizenship, they're protected. In fact, one of those plaintiffs just told us she'll give birth in 25 days. Her child will be a U.S. citizen even though she is a non-citizen. That is still in place. But the further application of this, Whit, remains to be seen, and the legal battle will continue, quite possibly denying President Trump his ability to see this long-awaited goal take fruition.
Devin Dwyer for us, thank you. Let's bring in ABC's Maria Villarreal in Dallas. And Maria, I know that you've been speaking with migrant activists and attorneys who've been representing some of these families. And when you think about this, we're talking about some mothers who are literally pregnant right now, asking questions about what this means for their child in just a matter of months.
We just heard this from Devin and Selena as well. I mean, obviously, this will not impact the people that are already involved in this case. But what immigration attorneys and advocates are saying is they are very concerned with how this will flood the court system moving forward, because it will force people to obviously, gain attorneys, make sure they have representation when it comes to these very hot topic items. One thing they also mentioned was this was a very calculated move by the administration. They watched during the first administration a lot of their policies, specifically with immigration, get shot down. And then during the Biden administration, we saw Title 42 and the Remain in Mexico policy, be affected by these nationwide injunctions. So when the administration brought birthright policies in forward, they wanted to make sure that they were focused in not just, going after the merits of the case initially, but this nationwide injunction first, because then moving forward, that allows them to have a broader impact on these immigration policies that they are probably already constructing right now.
Maria Vrial, Devin Dwyer, and Selena Wang for us, our entire team. We appreciate it. Again, President Trump calling the Supreme Court ruling a giant win. Our coverage continues on ABC News Live and abcnews.com. Then I'll be right back here later this evening for a complete wrap-up on World News Tonight.